Folks, it's Tino here with a special countdown to kick-off show, and we're now just hours away from the Scottish Cup final where Celtic take on Rangers, looking to hit a League and Cup double. Joined here tonight by James, Paddy and Asim. Asim, not had you on for a while. Welcome back to the show. What's your initial thoughts ahead of the big one?
Hi Tino, hi James, hi Paddy. No, great to be back on. It has been a while. I'm trying to think back when it might have been, but so much has happened since then. I think we were way behind in the league table. I'm sure back then. It's probably before the Derby game at Ibrox. So yeah, it's mad to think here we are on the back of a title win. I was there on Saturday. Such a perfect day from start to finish, really, wasn't it? In terms of the celebrations and just the weather and everything about it was bang on. So pretty much been celebrating the last few days and now kind of properly on game mode again. Looking forward to the weekend, hoping we can top it off. It's been a strange one because obviously Saturday has been brilliant the last couple of weeks as a Celtic fans. It's been brilliant, but they've always got this one lurking over you because you can't fully go into celebration mode until this is done, and it's by no means going to be easy. But I think we can go into it in really good confidence, and I'm certainly feeling confident and looking forward to it. First cup final against them in 20 years, the Scottish Cup final in 20 years, and I think it will be some occasion, and let's hope we can really top off what will be a really good end to the season.
Yeah, it's all gearing up for, hopefully, a very special day, another special day for Celtic. What's been your general take and your general feeling throughout the season, Asim? Obviously, you've been on our show a number of times, which has been great, catching your various opinions there. But were you always confident? Did you hit that dip? Did you get a dose of the myths who wobbles at different times? How were you feeling throughout the campaign? Obviously bumps in the road, but a particularly strong finish to the season by Celtic.
You've lined me up for this one. You'll remember my tweet at halftime at Fir Park very well. But to be honest, that was the one and only time where I think I was seriously on the brink of thinking, right, this season's headed in one direction and one direction only. And we were one down at Fir Park. We were on a bad run of form. And I was just thinking, if we're not going to turn this around, we should act pretty soon. But other than that, I have to be honest, even during the kind of November period where we lost, it came full circle. I was there the day that Santa was booed at halftime. And I think I was on the aftermatch with yourself, Tino. And we were just talking about how toxic and how bad it was that day. The credit really goes to the manager and the group of players, because I think all of us at that point probably didn't foresee us essentially winning the league. I say comfortably, but it was done before the last game of the season. And if you said that to me a month ago, we wouldn't have believed you. We would have thought, nah, this is going to go right down to the wire. But the way we finished it off has been really, really admirable. And you've got to hold your hat off to Brendan. He talked the talk back, and I was there at the press conference right at the start of the season when he said outside the ground, I'll see you all in May. And he delivers. He's delivered again. But yeah, there's no denying there's been times throughout the season, and we've all spoke about it on the podcast. But it's been looking a bit rocky at times. But I think there's been that belief that Brendan has the know-how. He is a very good manager, and we had that core group of players that, when fit and available, your Cameron Carter-Vickers, Joe Hart, Ray Hotati, Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly, and Kyogo. That spine for me was always going to be strong enough to really get us over the line. And you've seen that as soon as we started lifting our form, the other lot bottled it across the city, and so it's proved. So yeah, delighted to get it done. By no means been plain sailing, but I think all's well that ends well.
Yeah, and we've not ended yet, but we're in a good place to do so. James, Asim mentioned the press conference when Brendan returned back in June. You were there as well. What was your vibe at that time? Obviously, he made the now famous statement that I'll see you back in May. But generally speaking, do you feel that Brendan had the belief that we'd have a good season ahead? And did you at the time?
He's a very self-assured man. If you sit in a room listening to Brendan Rodgers talking about football, I recommend it to anyone that gets a chance at it. You can sit there for hours, just a guy that knows his brief inside out and knows what he's good at and what he's bad at. Like I say, a self-assured guy. I thought the May comment was ballsy. I think that's something that you've then obviously got to go and do. And in February, that was looking a wee bit ropey, but he got it done, So, and I think that's how he's been all season, certainly when it started to get a bit tight, and even when we went behind, it's his calmness that's got us through all that. And if you saw any of his press conferences today and a wee bit of chat yesterday, it's the exact same. He hasn't changed one bit. He's just very calm. He's maybe fired a couple of shots out to the snipers, in the last couple of weeks, and that's good because he's gone and done his job, and he's got the right to do that now. But watching him today for the game on Saturday, he's just calm as you like. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, someone in the comments, let me dig it out. Bear with me, some good dead air time here. I'll come back to me. Someone has referenced the fact that Brendan at this moment in time is relaxed and focused. That's the general take. He's been saying that for a couple of weeks, and I think it's a great headspace for a player to get into. Sometimes players get bogged down with messages, tactically or otherwise, but actually in the moments before a game, and certainly in the approach to a big game, a couple of simple messages. You've done all your prep, all the hard work's done. You know how we play, you're fit, you're physically ready. Relaxed and focused is a nice, clear message. Yep, it's Big Dom in the comments, so thanks to Big Dom. Thanks, of course, to everyone who continues to join us in the live. If anyone's got any questions, comments, or anything else for the guys and myself, be sure to put them in the comments and we'll try and catch them between now and the end of the show. Paddy, I had actually forgotten, genuinely, about Asim's halftime tweet at Motherwell. Potentially, the one wobble he had in terms of Brendan and what he was potentially going to do. There are others, a fella, Martin Linton, who generally follows on, and if Martin's watching just now, say hello. Martin sent us a message during the week to say that he had called for Brendan's head after the 2-0 loss at Celtic Park to Hearts, and he now fully concedes that he got it wrong. And I think there were some voices at that time. Were you, Paddy, always confident, or at any point did you think a change might have been the way to go?
I remember people were calling for his job, I think, just not long after that defeat as well. And then I think that kind of happened in maybe the end of January, beginning of February as well. I was a bit like miffed by that, to be honest. I thought that's not a pun there, by the way. I thought we have to give this guy a full season, a full chance. As we'd spoke about the things that kind of happened before, in terms of injuries, in terms of the signings, I think we still needed to take our time with things. We're not really a club with a knee-jerk reaction, to be honest. And I actually think that kind of bows us in good terms, to be honest, in terms of any manager coming in. They are going to be given a bit more of an opportunity to turn things round. For me, the circumstances he's come up against, we were right to give him a season for everything he's done at Celtic already, for the trophies he's won, the records he's set. Of course, you go and give a manager like Brendan Rodgers a full season to go and see what they can do. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, of course, and I think that there will be a lot of fans that will say, no, listen, I hold my hands up. We were also right to be upset with the level of performance, but when we look at the mitigating factors that we've spoke about all season, injuries, new style of play, new signings that we're not ready for the first team, the quality not fully coming in, apart from, I'd say, Ida coming in January. A lot of things that we've got to take into consideration there. So for the job he's done, for the fact he's brought a tune out of James Forrest, for the fact that he seems to have really changed the mindset for a lot of our players, and the main one that stands out for me is Daisen Maeda, who is that player that we kind of, you love it or you hate him. I think every Celtic fan loves him at the moment. I think his confidence is sky high at the moment as well. That all comes from the manager. So he's done an incredible job, but I can understand why people were slightly concerned. And it's very hard at that point to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. But it's only now, and getting into this final on Saturday, I think this is probably the first time in a long time the majority of our fans are feeling confident going into a big game.
Yeah, and that can be a dangerous thing. But I think what you can hear from Brendan Rodgers, and I'll stay with you, Paddy, for some chat on the press conference, but what you can hear is that there certainly won't be any complacency. It just doesn't enter his world. There's no overconfidence. And you'll get the various journalists at the press conference doing their job by asking him, how confident are you? They're looking for the headline. He doesn't play that game, or more specifically, he does play it, but he just knows how to. a number of interesting things came out the press conference, Paddy. I thought one of the interesting points was the fact that we are a team that in the early part of the campaign, you're playing every 3-4 days with injuries, and it's hard to find a rhythm, hard to get into your stride. And we've seen that, we witnessed that, didn't we? You know, he says he's not changed his style of play, but we know it wasn't the free-flowing football that we've seen over the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks now. Celtic's form was exceptional. Hearts was the last time we lost. You know, I think in the last 10 league games, won 8, drawn 1 against Rangers, and lost that game against Hearts. At his peak form, at the peak time of the season, he was asked, Paddy, and I'll ask you the question, do we have a psychological edge over Rangers? And you can look at that in a number of ways, manager versus manager, players versus player. But ultimately, results tell you that in 4 attempts, we've won 3 and drawn 1 of them this season. Do we have that edge?
I do. I think we do have an edge, but I think with someone like Rodgers, he will keep the players grounded. Ultimately, yes, we've been unbeaten in the league this season, but a cup game is completely different. It's 2 sets of fans. It's going to be a raucous Hampden on Saturday. A bowl of just sheer passion, sheer atmosphere, and sheer hate for each other as well. And I think that we just need to be on our best game. It'll have them focused for it. But listen, we've seen it at Hampden before. In games against Rangers, that anything can happen. Although, you know, I've just read one of the guys who put up saying that they've only beat us at Hampden 1 game in 8, which is an incredible record. I remember Hampden used to have that one of those hoodoos around it, more so under Neil Lennon than anyone. But for me, I just think Rodgers thrives in that kind of environment. He spoke about that in the press conference as well. This is the true making of this game, this fixture. And for me, I just think that where we're at, those guys will be ready for it. An incredible performance at Rugby Park last Wednesday. He was then able to make so many changes in the squad last Saturday. The guys that know what it takes are all fit, they're all fresh, and I just think that, you know, that's going to stand in good stead for us come Saturday.
Do you know, just a quick one on that, Paddy, before I forget to mention it, he talked about Tony Ralston. Obviously, I think we're all delighted that Tony Ralston, James Forrest will join Greg Taylor and Callum McGregor in the Scotland squad. There's still 2 guys to be cut. Ryan Jack should be one of them, and you can chuck one of your 4 goalies out and you can stick with the boys that are there. But he was raving about Tony Ralston. Tony Ralston probably won't start at Hampden, but he was saying that Tony will absolutely play more for him next season. And he said he's just a guy you can trust. He trains. He knows he doesn't get many minutes game time, so Tony's training are his game minutes, if you like. He just puts his all into training, and that was evidenced by the fact that he's bombing down the right-hand side to whip in across just on 90 minutes to set up Louis Palma last week. And that kind of tells you all you need to know about Tony Ralston. James is a huge fan, and he raves about what he does at the defensive side of the park, and then he gives you that going forward. So, great credit to Tony. Asim, just in terms of Hampden, obviously, Celtic, as Paddy mentioned there, I think we've won 7 out of the last 8 against them there. It's a place that Celtic fans have become pretty familiar with, and a lot of big occasions there, a lot of enjoyable days. Celtic generally, throughout their semi-recent history, have had some momentous occasions there. You think of the Tom Rodgers final. You can go further back to the centenary year and whatever else. Some big days under Martin O'Neill. Some huge occasions there. But Brendan Rodgers is quoted as saying, "When I first came here, I said, if you want to win and be multiple winners, then you need to enjoy playing at Hampden. When we've arrived here, we know that the surface should suit our game and we've got a chance to go and demonstrate our football." And it wasn't always the case. You guys might remember that Neil Lennon had a wee bit of a Hampden hoodoo. But there's this real confidence as I'm coursing through these players. And I think they'll pull into Hampden at whatever time the bus arrives, and they'll just know that the stage is set for them to go and do what they do best.
You're right. It started with obviously O'Neill, who brought the glory days back, and then there was a right good period where we were really poor at Hampden. Lost a lot of games: Kilmarnock, St Mirren, Hearts, Ross County. So there's been a it was Rodgers then that returned us to becoming so good at Hampden again, and it's been that way ever since. So you're right, it's been some momentous moments, some real classics, some brilliant times, and it is just listening to Paddy say that it's Rodgers which kind of gives me that belief going into this game that there's going to be no No complacency at all. I just think you're right, Paddy. He thrives on these occasions. It brings out the best in him. The fixture brings out the best in him. You've seen that all season, despite numerous games that we've probably gone into it as underdogs this season. We've came out on top, and I think obviously this one we're going into it as favourites, but I don't think that will change the mindset and the focus of the players and manager. I think he talked about it at the weekend there. It's game day. You know, they take things. Even just last week, the St Mirren game, they were all wanting still to win that game, even though there was nothing really riding on it. So I think it's all set up. You know, the thing is we are going to go into it as favourites, but I think rightfully so. We're in such a good run of form. We've got everyone available and fit. And you mentioned trust there about Ralston. I think that's the key as well. Rodgers has managed to get a core group of players who he trusts, and that's who's got us over the line since February onwards. It's a core group that he's constantly relied on, and they've been the ones that have delivered. So I think we can rightfully go into it confident. But again, as Paddy says, it's a 50-50 game. I remember going to the semi-final in Andrew's first season pretty confident that year at Hampden, and we didn't manage to win that one. So I think things like that will make sure that the players that were involved then and fans alike are taking nothing for granted. You know, it's still a big game here. You know, I know they're not on form, but it's a one-off game. So, and we all know about the referees; they can have an impact as well. I'm sure Beaton's involved in some fashion again, isn't he? So we have to be careful. But if we do the job, if we play the way we played in the last 5 weeks, there's only one winner.
I totally agree. Listen, it's a big day for John Beaton. We're not going to discount that, but I think if Celtic, I've heard this quite a lot in recent games, if the best version of Celtic comes up and the best version of Rangers, we win the game. James, one of the challenges for Brendan Rodgers has been, and will always be for any manager, to keep happy the players who aren't currently playing. So Tony Ralston's a great example. Doesn't and hasn't played many games this season, and then he comes right back into the starting lineup against St Mirren and gives you an all-out performance. And there's various other guys, but you've seen that unity amongst the players. Definitely at Rugby Park on the Wednesday night, absolutely at Celtic Park on Trophy Day. There's a real togetherness here, and that's including guys that very possibly won't be here next year. You've seen guys like Kobayashi and Odin Thiago Holm and even and various other guys, very much part of the celebrations. You know, none of them were there with their face tripping them. They were part of a team. And that in itself is a huge skill set, and it's credit to Rodgers that he's managed to maintain that harmony.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be one of the dilemmas that you deal with at Celtic is how to balance that, because you need the big squad, but not everyone's going to play as much as they would like to play, because every player wants to play every game, by and large. You know, certainly that's my experience of Celtic players, by and large. So it's a talent Rodgers has got, and we're maybe seeing a bit of the effect of his more intimate style of relationship with players, as opposed to Ange's more standoffish coach, maybe a bit more like O'Neill, although O'Neill was a great man manager as well, as was Ange. So, but I think Rodgers having that close connection with these players, he's able to speak to them and say, listen, here's where you are just now, here's where I need you to get to if we want to see in the first team more. And also the first team guys, here's what I need you to be doing better or less of, or whatever kind of thing. So I think a lot of it comes down to Rodgers. But Callum McGregor too, don't discount his part in all of this and keeping that squad together, because he's the one that they all look to.
There's no doubt about that, and he's shown his value. There's so many guys that have come back and played a key part. You look at Callum McGregor, you look at Carter Vickers, you look at Reo Hatate, you look at Dyson Maeda. These guys that had pretty tough injuries throughout the campaign, but they've all come back and showed their worth, but no more so than Callum McGregor. Paddy, I'll come to you for one last point before we try and make sense of what the team might be. And it's about the fact that you need to be sure. I'm going to roll out my big book of footballing cliches throughout this episode, but the first one is that you need to play the game and not the occasion. And it's very easy to say that, and it's harder to execute it because the stage is set. We're obviously doing our build up just now, but the players will have been there, through the week, training at Lennoxtown. There's no doubt there's a buzz in the air when you're heading for cup final. It's on all the TV shows, it's on all the radio, it's everywhere you look. It's certainly online when players jump on their phones. And there is a temptation to get caught up on it all. Full house, packed house, 50-50 split at Hampden. Just a real thriving atmosphere and the chance to finish our season on the highest of highs. Cup final day is a special day. Celtic have got a special relationship with the Scottish Cup. So how important is it for the players to keep the cool heads and focus on the 90 minutes first of all, the job at hand?
Oh, listen, without a doubt, they'll be well aware of the hype around the game, and I think that, you know, Rodgers mentioned again in the press conference about, you know, enjoying the celebrations on Saturday and then continuing those celebrations with the women's team, winning the league title as well. Another brilliant weekend for the club as a whole, and then coming back into the Monday, you know, like time to get focused again. The one thing for me that is also a little bonus actually, is that a lot of the chat, a lot of the noise has been dampened a little bit with the announcement of the Euro squad. It's put a bit of a spotlight onto that as well. So it's kind of taking that little sting out the heat of it all. Because believe me, I look at the history of Celtic over the last 2-3 seasons. We really keep things in house. Now our board do that with the fans, but the players manage to do that, and the team manages to do that with the media as well. And they do it really well to the point that they don't get caught up, they don't get brought into any sort of headline making, nothing like that. It's not access all areas. It's all very much in house. And I think that bodes well for just the mindset. That bodes well for keeping all that noise away. Without a doubt, these players know what they're going into on Saturday. Without a doubt, it's a very big occasion. But this is why you play football. This is why you play for a club like Celtic. You want to win trophies. You want to be involved in those kind of games. And it will be a bit of a pressure pot on Saturday. I've said that a few times for this game. And I think that it will come down to who stands up. It will be that quote Rodgers made not that long ago. It's 80% mentality, and I think that's where Celtic have won the league this season, coming down to that as well. So yeah, one final push from them, but I'm confident. I'm confident. I respect that it's going to be a difficult game. I respect that cup finals can go whatever way, but I just feel that we've got enough about us on the park, but also just in a mental status as well.
I couldn't agree more with that, Paddy. I think it's so important. The mental side of football, I think, is huge in general, and it's amplified here in Scotland. Listen, there's some talented guys that have arrived at both Celtic and Rangers over the years, big reputations, big talent, and completely failed. They've not been able to adjust to the temperament in the city and the expectations, you know, on those two clubs, and particularly ahead of such a game like this. So yeah, I agree. It's got to be more than 80% in the head for me. But I think the players do have the temperament for that. What we'll do now, so we would usually run through the team. We'd start with the goalie, defence, midfield, attack, and get various opinions. What I'm going to do is tell you what the team's going to be, because I think I know. And then I'll come to you individually for any general thoughts, agreements, disagreements, and you can take it from there. And I do think it's a team that kind of picks itself. We've seen that. I think it was ahead of the Kilmarnock game. You could certainly have picked, you know, maybe 10 of the places, with the Kyogo versus Ida being the other one. Same for the recent Rangers game. But here's what I think we'll go with. It'll be Joe Hart, his last ever game as a pro, and we'll get a bit more on that just shortly. Alistair Johnson right back, Greg Taylor left back, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Liam Scales in the middle. Callum McGregor, as always, will be in the holding position with Matt O'Reilly and Ray O'Tati up ahead of him. I think it's Kyogo. I think it's got to be Kyogo, particularly given his record at Hampden and his record against Rangers. And then you'll have Maeda on the left, nullifying James Tavernier and doing his own thing going forward. And you'll have the revelation that is James Forrest on the right-hand side. James, I'll come to you first. Any general comments, disagrees?
Zero disagrees. It's the same team that started a couple of weeks back at Parkhead against them. That's just it. That's going to be your team. I know there's a bit of debate. You know, people, including myself, have really enjoyed Ida's form since he came in, and against Kilmarnock, I thought he was brilliant. It's just a game that's set up for Kyogo. We spoke about it a few times over the last few weeks. There's going to be games that really suit Ida's style, and this, you know, you could argue is one of them. But there's games that don't suit Kyogo's style, and this isn't one of them. This suits his style all day long, particularly with whatever kind of shop dummies they're going to put in at centre half. I don't know who's fit and who's not. It's you know, certainly they haven't got their first choice guys, so he's just going to love going at that. So there's nothing changed up top. Jamesy 100%. Kuhn's got he just needs to work harder, Kuhn. And the rest, AJ takes it back off of Tony. As much as I'm a big Ralston fan, I think you go with that, and then you bring Ralston on to close out with the last half hour. And I do hope we do that, because the 3 each game, that was a mistake that Rodgers made, not bringing Ralston on when Johnson was clearly tiring. But everything else, more than happy with that.
What about yourself, Asim? Is there anyone you feel deserves particular discussion out of that 11 I've mentioned? Anyone you'd change? Do you have a take on the Ida versus Kyogo argument, for example?
No, I think it's a sign of the times and the consistency that we're probably all in unison here with regards to the first 11. I just can't see any changes to that. I think everyone's on good form right now. With Ida, obviously, it was a bit of a surprise when he started the Kilmarnock game. I think that was the only one that everyone was like, well, but then how right did Brendan get it? Ida was immense in that game. And it just shows you, Rodgers is kind of tactical nous, that he knows which opponents certain players will be more effective against, and Kyogo lives for this fixture. We've seen that. He's got some record against them. He's got a brilliant record at Hampden. He's won us two finals at Hampden, League Cup finals essentially. And I just think they really struggle against them. The whatever backline they play really, really struggle against Kyogo. And I just think with it being on the Hampden pitch, he'll thrive off that. And also I think it's an ideal kind of game for Ida to come on whenever he will, to be equally as effective in his own way. You've seen that. If you've seen that at Ibrox when he came on, he's got a certain style that just makes it very difficult in a different way. So Kyogo will do all the running for 60, 70 minutes. But Ida can equally run into channels, hold the ball up, link up, and just make things really difficult for their back line. So I think from that end, I'm pretty content, and I'm pretty confident it will be Kyogo that starts. The other one would maybe Jamesy and Kuhn, but again, James has just been so good. Again, knows the fixture well. He's been so consistent in his performances. And I just think his game intelligence and awareness is perfect for this fixture. So I think that's the 11 that we'll see. But the beauty of it is we've got players ready to come in who are also on form, got a point to prove. Bernardo's been effective in this fixture. He's a guy that can come on. Iwata, Kuhn, Ralston, we know what he can do. So we're in such a good position where not only have we got a strong 11 that are starting and playing well, we've got guys coming off that you can trust, and that's the most important thing, because we know that this game could go the distance here.
Yeah, I mean, Miff's called extra time. Asim, he said 2-0 after extra time, and on that basis, and we had extra time against Aberdeen in the semi-final, you need to call on a number of guys, and I think we do all of a sudden have pretty reasonable strength and depth. We're hoping, of course, that the club's strengthen in the summer, but for the here and now, I think there's real strength here that could play their part. Paddy, one thing amongst many that I think is really important in football is confidence and momentum. And you talked briefly just about the Scotland squad selection. James Forrest, Callum McGregor, Greg Taylor, and of course Tony Ralston, all part of that. Don't expect Tony to start, but the other three will. And that call-up, knowing what you've got in store in the summer, on the back of just lifting the league title 7 days ago, those guys will be in top form. They'll be feeling great about themselves as they take to the park.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant achievement for them to be called up by their country and just be relishing an opportunity to put in a 90-minute performance that could potentially guarantee them a start 2 weeks later over in Munich. So I think for me, it's, first and foremost though, these guys, it's for Celtic. It's for Celtic. They want to go and finish a season on a high. Ultimately, they've got there because of their form with their clubs, and none other than James Forrest, an incredible achievement to just come out of the woodwork to try and help Celtic see a league over the line. He's now got himself called up for a Euro squad, which just an incredible testament to him. I listened to Steve Clarke's press conference, and I thought his words about Forrest were very, very humble as well. I thought he was absolutely right in saying what he was saying in terms of you just can't write this guy off, and the experience he brings is massive. And then we see what Rodgers had to say as well in today's presser as well. He's huge for us, and I think that he's not even near half a season of football. He's just at the beginning, so he's very fresh. He's got up to pace. I just think he's going to be crucial for Celtic on Saturday. But I can see him being crucial for Scotland as well. I think he could be a starter.
There was a bit of chat from both Rodgers and Clark, as you mentioned there, Paddy, over the last 24 hours. These are two very smart, experienced managers, and both have worked at length with James Forrest, and both were absolutely glowing in their praise of what he does, how he prepares himself. And James Forrest is, he's had his really effective spells for Celtic, particularly during Rodgers' first spell. He's now having this he's on this comeback tour, and as you say, he's fresh as a daisy. What a time of the season with a Euros ahead of you to be at the peak of your powers. He's strong, he's fit, he's enjoying his game, he's playing well. It's all there for James Forrest, and I just think that he deserves huge credit, for everything he's brought to the game when it had been so easy just to not easy to down tools. It's I would never suggest that, but it'd be easy to feel down, get a bit complacent, and maybe think that this is the end of the line for me at Celtic. What he's done in terms of how he's prepared himself to be ready when the call comes deserves huge credit. And James, what you also can't dismiss is that James Forrest last year and even the year before found himself in the pecking order behind Jota, a bit of a one-off talent, extremely talented Celtic player, great Celtic player. Leah Labada, a hugely effective Celtic player, and Dyson Maeda, who is Dyson Maeda, and everything that he brings to the party. There's no shame in being behind those three lads, but it's good. Listen, there's a sliding doors thing that's going on with James here this season in terms of you've lost two of those players, and the others that were brought in haven't proven themselves as talented as you. And James Forrest deserves all the credit going for what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, but I think it ties to what Paddy was talking about, referencing Rodgers and mentality earlier on. When that stuff starts happening to a footballer, there's one of two or three ways you can go. You can downgrade your club and you can go and play at an easier level. You can chuck it. Or you can do what Jamesy did. He just knuckled down. He's fitter than he's ever been at Celtic. We can see old photos and kind of videos and stuff and say he's carrying a bit of puppy fat. But he wasn't as physically fit then as he is now. I think he's just seen it for what it is and went, right, I'm not getting my game. And the only way I'm going to get myself in contention to get my game is to just hit that gym. And he's hammered the gym. He just looks so fit, and he's had his reward as part of that. I mean, he's an example to the guys who are on the fringes and maybe find themselves now where Jamesy was, no matter what he's there, is that when you get your chance, you absolutely need to take it. And all I'm looking for from you is goals and assists. Other stuff, good play, that's great, but give me goals and assists, and you've got a much better chance of keeping your place. Jamesy's done a lot, scored goals, assisted goals, kept the ball, got us out of tricky situations. He's an example to everyone, honestly. And I'm long on record with my feelings about Jamesy. I've always thought there was extra levels to him that he didn't show. But you'd be an absolute idiot not to look at what he's done in the last couple of months and not just be hugely impressed.
Yeah, he's made an absolute mug of you, James, and myself included.
The first, he won't be the last.
But you talk about the example he sets. I've scribbled here who I think will be in the bench. Guys like Kuhn, Palmer, Bernardo, Iwata, Yang, amongst others, they must look to James Forrest. And listen, some of those guys may make it to Celtic, some may not, but they must look at James Forrest and say, if I'm to give myself even half a chance, I need to do what this guy's doing. Tony Ralston doesn't need to learn the example either. He knows how to do it. So you've got two homegrown talents there showing the way for the other guys that find themselves in reserve. And I think it's just such a positive thing to happen around. And it's a real happy story that's come about that we maybe most of us, a myth will say that he called it, but most of us won't have anticipated this. And it's just a real plus and a series of pluses that Celtic have hit towards this latter part of the campaign. Last point on the lineup before we look at some other things is the experience of being at Hampden and winning cup finals for Celtic. If we've called the team right, and maybe we have, maybe we haven't, Liam Scales, Asim, is the only guy that's not started a cup final for Celtic. You've got everyone else at different points. James Forrest and Callum McGregor, Greg Taylor have started multiple finals, and others have got at least one or two in the bag. But Liam Scales is the only one without that experience. But he won't be afraid of the big games, Asim. I think he played in all 6 of the Champions League games. He got man of the match against Feyenoord. He's had an excellent season by his own standards, and he won't be fazed by this, will he?
No, you can argue that he's excelled in those games. The Derby games and the Champions League games have probably been his best, some of his best performances this season. maybe just the nature of the games where it's a bit more, the possession's a bit more spread, and it's, his weaknesses aren't exposed as much in that sense. But when it comes to just defending, last ditch defending, the things that he does well, he's excelled in. And again, I've been a critic of him in the latter part of the season, but again, it comes to trust, and I think Rodgers has really, really put his trust in him. It's why when people have been calling for Lagerbielke or Nawrocki, it was always been Scales for Rodgers. He's stuck with him, and you can see why. He is someone that the manager can rely on, and I think you're right. Know-how, mentality of that group of players around him will help him through. And I've got no issues at all in Liam being able to put on another good performance and really topping off, which is what's been such a breakthrough season for him. He can really hold his head up high over what he's achieved this season. If you look at where he was at the start, and what his own probably expectations were going to be of the season, for him to possibly end with a double and be an ever present, it's a remarkable achievement. And for whatever happens next season, whether we go on to strengthen that position, Liam Scales can be really proud. And I'm hoping he can pull off one more good performance. I know he's been a bit ropey at times in the last maybe couple of months, but with Carter Vickers there, Johnston, Taylor, you're kind of solid, reliable back four. Joe Hart behind them. We've looked a lot better defensively, other than that St Mirren game, which naturally we had 3 changes to the back four. You look at us throughout the split, we've been pretty good defensively as well. Some of those frailties haven't been there, so it just shows you what comes with a bit of consistency, a bit of confidence, and like you say, that mentality. That's the main thing that's got us through the title this season is the mentality, as Paddy said earlier on. So yeah, I think we can all be hopeful and confident that will carry on through to Saturday.
Spot on, and I think just in terms of Liam Scales, as you say, Asim, he can be really proud of what he's achieved, and how special would it be for him to add a Scottish Cup to what he's already picked up this season. Just a quick thank you to Pat Scanlon. Pat's chipped in a couple of quid there. Thanks to Pat for doing so. If anyone is watching on YouTube, if you get the chance and you enjoy what we're doing here, check out the memberships and some of the different options there and different ways to support what we're doing. It allows myself and the guys to keep bringing you as much content as possible throughout the season and beyond. Paddy, let's take a quick look at Rangers in terms of what they might bring on Saturday. And it is hard to call. So we've, I think, agreed between the four of us here what we think the Celtic team will be. And if it's not that, it won't be far away from that. But Rangers have got many calls to make. They've had injury worries, and that's part of football. We've experienced some of that ourselves this season, as we know. I don't know who they go with at the back. I don't know what they're doing in the number 10, the wide areas, left back. I don't know where to start, and I don't really have much of an idea of what they're going to do. But the encouraging thing is, I don't think the manager knows what he's going to do either. I caught some of the headlines from his press conference. I've not watched it, but he's basically keeping his cards close to his chest. I'm not saying anything. It's a cup final. I don't want to give away too much. I think it's because he doesn't know himself.
Yeah, it'll probably be up to the last minute. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few that are probably told they're not anywhere near match fit, but they'll be putting themselves on the line for this game on Saturday. Just to answer some of the boys, I'll put the kettle on after. Just seen some of the comments coming up there. I'll sort it out. Just get your order in. James can come over and help me make them.
Paddy's in the kitchen/studio recording, like the pro that he is.
Absolutely. No, listen, I think you're not alone there. I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty of Rangers fans that will be feeling the same just now, Tino. Look, I don't know what to do. I think there's a lot of pundits in the last week that have been calling for them to change it up. They need to think about something else in terms of how they approach the game against Celtic. Their first half against us at Celtic Park the other week just showed you that the 2 or 3 different attempts against us. He's not got it right. He's not knowing how to break us down, and he's. I think he's one of those managers that thinks get the first goal and sit in. I really do, but he just can't deal with how much pressure he's under from the get-go. Celtic are very, very good at pinning Rangers in, and I think that it'll be more of the same of that on Saturday. I mean, what do? Do you tweak your left back again? Do you put Sterling there? Do you play Yilmaz? Do you put Sterling at right back and put Tavernier further forward up? Do you play, probably for me, I think Sterling is one of their best players this season. Does he come into the middle of the park? They're talking about Cantwell being the saviour. I mean, crack on with that. Honestly, like, I'm taking nothing away from it, and from the fact that it will be. I do think it will be a difficult game on Saturday, but they don't know their best team. And at one point this season, he was being lauded for the amount of rotation that was working for him.
Yeah.
But actually, I still think he was trying to figure out who his best players were, personally. The issues at the back, yeah, I think anyone, whether it was Goldson and Suter, whether it's Ben Davies and Balogun, I still think Kyogo or Adamida is good enough to take on either pairing. But it looks like it's going to be young King that starts for them as well. I generally think that, great opportunity for him, but if he was good enough, I'm pretty sure he'd be getting used, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have been re-signing Leon Balogun as well. So it's up to us to take advantage of this. We've had our injury woes this season. They've got theirs at the moment. Let's go and take advantage of it as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in terms of when Philippe Clement was making those changes in the early part of his time at Rangers this season. They were saying, look how good this guy is. He changes it 1 week to the next. He's keeping the players on their toes. He's keeping them guessing. I think there was a huge slice of luck. Actually, in those early games, James, as you'll remember, there was late penalties and all sorts of things going on which papered over the cracks. And I think he was unjustly getting praised about the genius of his changes and starting different teams from 1 week to the next. And I think that's now caught up on him. And I would concede they've had their injury worries, and that'll affect what any manager is doing. But some of his decisions are baffling, and I think a lot of their fans are feeling the same. They've got a real issue, a real concern over John Lundstrom. He's obviously let them down badly at Celtic Park. He then served a suspension on the back of that. This will likely be his last game for Rangers. And they, as a fan base, what I can see online, they're terrified that the manager goes with them again. I've seen some comments on his press conference today about them saying he cannot possibly go with us again. The definition of insanity, keep doing the same things, expecting different results. The other challenge they've got, James, is how do you deal with Callum McGregor, the guy who makes everything tick? They tried to put Tom Lawrence on him. Tom Lawrence is a number 10, effectively. And they got him, they tried to, get him to nullify Callum McGregor. He got close enough in the first few minutes to kick McGregor cheaply off the ball. And I don't think he's seen him the rest of the game. I think Tom Lawrence completely disappeared. And I think if we're being kind to him, he shouldn't have been asked to do that job. It's not a job he's capable of. But the question is, and I said this before the last game against Rangers, I don't think they've got someone in their ranks that is capable of dealing with Callum McGregor, amongst others.
No, and I agree with you, Lawrence. I think he's actually quite a classy player, albeit they've got him late in his career, too late in his career. I think Lundstrom will come back in for them. I think they're just going to, because they brought Raskin back in for a few weeks, and they're like, he's the guy now. He's going to fix all the problems, and then he plays another game. They go, shit, we forgot he was terrible. So it's back to Lundstrom in there. I think he'll actually start with Cantwell, because what you're saying earlier on about insanity to keep doing the same things and expecting different results. They've tried long ball and bypassing the midfield, so he might as well try and create, because they didn't create. I can't remember them creating much of any football against us this season in 4 games. So if he's going to have a shot at it, and I think they've got a shot, but it's a puncher's chance. I think there's a real chasm between these teams, but they've got a puncher's chance. It's cup final stuff. It's all that. But the only way they can do something about it is if they actually create some football, and that might lead to Cantwell, which would be hilarious. I would love that.
James, a bird can't fly if he's kept in the cage, as we all know. So we'll see what he decides to do with.
Did you hear Clement today? These press conferences I've just read, same as you, read transcripts and stuff. He's still coming out with this patter that the games have been close. You've won none. We've won 3. We've both drawn 1. That's not close. So to keep trying to kind of salve the wound and reassure them that it's okay, there's no great gap. There is a gap, and you're not going to address it until you admit it.
Yeah, and he was saying something that, they've obviously suffered a few defeats out with ours. Ross County 3-2, Motherwell 2-1 and whatever else has happened. And he's saying, yeah, okay, we're losing, but we're not losing by much. It's like, great stuff, Bill. It's like, I don't know if you want extra points for not taking a doing. And on that note, there's a good point that comes in here from Patrick McLaughlin, good friend of the show. Patrick says, we've been 2-0 up in the last 3 games against Rangers. And, the point here, us getting the third goal this time could lead to a heavy beating. Had Celtic gone 3-0 up in any of those games, you could have seen any number of scorelines. The last point on them tactically, Asim, James is leaned towards it, but they had one effort on goal against us at Celtic Park, and it was the goal. It was Desser's goal. That aside, Joe Hart's had a pretty easy afternoon. And I don't know if you've seen the clip that was doing the rounds in the aftermath of that game. Can't remember who it was on Twitter, but someone basically sped up the first half and just showed you the first half highlights or first half attacking play by Rangers. And all it was fullbacks getting it and shelling it. Whether it was Barisic on the left or Tavernier on the right or Lundstrom from deep, it was just a series of highlights of guys going big, going long, going big, and that's all they had. And I think that's woeful. At first, I gave Clement some praise because he made a poor team slightly better, and I think that's credit where it's due. But actually, I don't think he brings much tactical nous to the party at all. You could say that he's maybe just trying to work with the tools he's got, and if you don't have the ball players, you can't play ball, so he's trying to go more direct. In terms of tactical nous, playing around Celtic and intricate phases of play, that's not something this current team have in their locker, is it?
No, and it's 3 games now he's had where he's showed nothing. And as Patrick says, you look at all 3 of those games, we could have been out of sight had we been a bit more clinical. In each of those games, got that third goal, it could have been a heavy beating. And naturally, what happens in these games if you don't get that, that killer third goal, the momentum can shift or things can change and it gets a bit nervy towards the end. But as much as he might call the games close on paper, 100%, I don't think they reflect the actual dominance that we've had over the course of those games. I think the scorelines have been flattening to them. And I don't think they've got another way to play. That's the problem. I don't think as you said, I don't think they've got the ball players, the craft, the guile to actually do anything different than what they do, get it to the fullbacks or even the centre-backs and basically shell it long and work off second balls. Now, that can sometimes work. It's been effective for them in Europe. You've seen that. It's almost like it does sometimes get them results because, they play off scraps, play off second balls, and sometimes these European teams haven't dealt with it. What we've shown in the last few games is we've nullified that threat. We've dealt with their cross balls. We've dealt with their set pieces pretty well. Obviously, the exception being the kind of goal they scored at Celtic Park there. But even in the second half, as much as they were launching things in the box, I thought that's where Scales is pretty good at heading things away. Carter Vickers is good. I'd be interested to see, though. I think they're going to have to try something different. I just think, as you've said, they keep doing the same thing. It's not been working. The fans are kind of on his back now about the tactics. So I'm expecting them to actually maybe try and press us further up the pitch. I think that's what they might do and try and stop us playing out from the back and turning it into a bit more of a long ball game from both sides. And it's whether we can then get the foothold in the midfield and really kind of grab the game by the scruff of the neck. I just look at our midfield; it's so much better and stronger than theirs, and that's where I get a lot of my confidence in that. As long as we can get those guys on the ball, I think we'll be far too good for them.
I was going to ask Asim to follow up from some of your points here if you think they'll start fast and aggressive. And I think they need to. Again, I've seen some of the comments from James Tavernier. He must be feeling pretty low. He's taking a lot of stick right now, and he's the captain, so he needs to turn up every time and give it the chat in the press conference. And he must be sick of the sound of his own voice on the back of defeats by Celtic. This is from their point of view, there's no bigger motivation for them than putting the dampener on our party and grabbing themselves a second trophy. So we've talked about the quality that's on show from both teams or on offer from both teams. They will be highly motivated. And I think at least initially, they will come at us aggressively and fast and potentially try and press us high up the park. But Paddy, on that note, I think that could play right into Celtic's hands. If they come and try and press us very high up the park, Celtic have shown they've got the ability to play through those lines and all of a sudden you could win. The amount of time and space Matt O'Reilly found himself in at Celtic Park was quite incredible. It was almost like when Celtic got in the ascendancy, they backed off. Whether it was Tavernier being afraid of Maeda or any one of their defenders being afraid of Matt O'Reilly. They kind of didn't know whether to stick or twist, and the result was a Matt O'Reilly goal.
Yeah, listen, I think Asim makes a very good point though as well, in terms of if they were to kind of go and try and press us, it's how's your bottle Celtic with moments like that. I think there was points of the game on Saturday against St Mirren, and credit to St Mirren, where they were pinning us in a little bit in the back. So, you know, what do we do? Do we try and bump it long, or do we try and play it out for the back? And this team is very, very clever at playing it out for the back. It's not good for the fans in the stadium. It's not good watching, you know, a ball trickle along to Joe Hart and you're thinking you should have left your line 2-3 minutes ago, mate. But they're very, very comfortable with the ball at their feet. They're very, very comfortable from playing it out at the back. So whether Rangers come at us with the ball over the top, or whether they come to us with the ball on the deck, I still think we've got enough to kind of to overcome that. And I generally believe that they do have to change it against us on Saturday. They do have to look at another way in. Having said that, though, when we look at the games that were played against them this season, look at the attempts that they have had on goal. They've had the penalty at Ibrox, they had the deflected shot, and they had the wonder goal from Matondo. There's 3 reasons they get those goals. It's 3 Celtic mistakes. And one of the things that we just need to realise, and one of the things that we really need to make sure that we're on top of on Saturday, is ourselves. We need to make sure that we're switched on for 90 minutes. Because we let a little bit of complacency settle in at Celtic Park the other week, and I believe that's where the nerves came from. And one of the things the manager said about that is that if you remain focused, see the game out, keep the ball in those like final 10-15 minutes, but before that, go and take your chances. We need the killer instinct on Saturday, and I think we might have it.
Yeah, and you know, as Patrick said, if we go 2-0 up and get that third, could be set for a very special day. James, just in terms of the manager there, what's your take on just how important a guy like Brendan Rodgers is on a day like Saturday?
Just, he's everything, having a manager like that. You know, I always felt over the last few years when it was Ange and Beale, Rodgers and Beale, Rodgers Clement, when you're a wee bit nervous going into these games, I'm always reassured that we've got a better manager in all of those permutations, and that's certainly the case. I'm like you. I thought, you know, initially Clement had done something. He'd certainly made them play. He had them better organised. Is probably the best way to put it. But you know, he got booed off in his first game against Hearts, and it was only a penalty that saved him there. He got 8 penalties in his first 7 games, so that always helps. It's more his first derby against us. You could see him starting to unravel already, coming out with all sorts of crazy excuses, getting on at officials and stuff. And that has just been his theme after every one of these games. And he's taken it into almost every press conference now. He's got the kind of certain section of a season table and all these crazy things that didn't work for Ali McCoist, didn't work for Michael Beale, didn't work for Gerrard, you know, everything like that. So, whereas on the other side, Rodgers is just extremely calm, extremely focused, extremely dedicated. You know, to come out and kind of defend his corner last week and saying, I'm in this office at 7:30, 7 o'clock every morning. I leave at 7 o'clock, you know. So I'm not a novice at this. And that's what always gives me huge reassurance going into these ties. It's of course going to be a tough game, but if they try and come out and play football against us, there's a reason they haven't done that. Is A, they haven't got the personnel, and B, it's a trap. We'll spring that.
Yeah, I think, as I said, their Rangers are trying to play to their strengths. The problem is their strengths aren't that strong, and that's where Celtic can take advantage. Lads, there's been a lot of talking, but I need to put you on the spot now in terms of your scoreline predictions. As I said earlier on, we spoke to Miff at the top of the week, spoke to Miff on Monday. Very reluctant to give a prediction. He's a nervy man when it comes to things like this or games like this, but he went for 2-0 with the caveat of it being after extra time. I don't think I can go extra time. That wouldn't be a good day for Celtic. I don't think it will come to that. Asim, I'll come to you first. So what's your big scoreline prediction?
I think it's going to follow the theme of the previous kind of games, where I think we'll be the better team. I think we'll get ahead again. I think we'll go 2 up, but I think it'll finish 2-1. I just think it'll follow that kind of same pattern as the previous ones. I'd love it to be a bit more comfortable, but yeah, I think we'll be the better team. but I can see them maybe scoring one and just making it a bit nervy. But ultimately, I think we'll get over the line.
And I think we'd be happy with that. We'd all take 2-1. Stephen Kennedy, who's on the screen now, he's gone for 2-1. And a few scoreline predictions coming in, so we'll share them throughout the next three sections. So if you do have an idea of what you think the scoreline will be sure to let us know. I'm right behind Patrick McLaughlin's 5-1. A man after my own heart. But Paddy, what are you going with?
I'm thinking 4-0. I do think that we will turn it on. And listen, it's a big gamble for them to come and try and change their tactics. I well said, Fidel, I agree with that. I think it's a big gamble for them to really come in and change their tactics. But if we go and get the first goal in the first 10-15 minutes, I think we'll settle into the game quicker. And I think, listen, the guys have played them enough. They've played them recently. They've got enough about them to say, right, we know how to get in behind this team. Let's go and put them at the sword this time. So 4-0 Celtic for me.
Paddy, I was going to hold off and come to myself later on, but 4-0 is my scoreline. I've been saying it since the start of the week, and I can't change it now. I've committed to it on Monday, and I'm going to go for 4-0. Before I come to you, James, there's a variety of scorelines coming in. James Muir has gone for 3-1. Pat Scanlon, 3-1. Colin Stewart, 6-2, a famous Celtic scoreline. Jim Hunter, even more famous, he's gone 7-1. And a few others which I'll try and get to. But James, what are you saying?
I just think it's a totally different day tomorrow. Even if you look at Aberdeen semi-final, the games against them, think about all the...
It's Friday tomorrow.
Sorry, it's Saturday. Think all the distractions that were around in those games. You know, you've got the league, you're maybe behind the table, you've got everything else that's going on. There's nothing to think about. It's this game. And I think Rodgers is going to send them out to dominate, get yourselves 2 up, and then just play with pure freedom. I was going to go for a kind of a 5-1. Joe Hart's not letting in goals tomorrow. It's not his style. Last game ever in football, he's not letting in any goals. 5-0.
I love your optimism. So let's see. Let me run through. So we've got 5-0 from James, myself and Paddy on 4-0, Miff on 2-0 after extra time. Asim a bit more cagey on 2-1.
James is adamant this game's tomorrow, so can I get your ticket for Saturday, James?
No comment.
Folks, it's a long shot, but at the moment Asim is without ticket. If anyone hears of anything at all, please do let us know. A couple more scorelines. Jerry Watt, good friend of the show, Paddy. Jerry's gone 3-0 Celtic, will score early and they'll crumble. James Pearson's gone 3-1. Dyson, a rare Carter Vickers goal. I'd like to see that in Kyogo. And he thinks Rangers will score late. All very positive scorelines. And I suppose it kind of tells us, lads, where we are personally and where the fan base are. We're confident. I think we're all in confident shape, but there is always that danger of the players getting overconfident and complacent. I don't think that happens. So we can do what we do. We can say what we say, and everyone as fans can get excited about this. And I don't know, if you don't get excited just now, when do you get excited? I think you need to sometimes let yourself go with the moment, but keeping in mind that the players will be fully focused and switched on to what they need to do. San Fran's gone for 7-1 as well. Flying Haggis 3-1. Michael Cairns 3-0. Brido, main man on the show, Brido, nice to have you join us. 4-0. A Joe Hart double. Very optimistic. And Patrick McAvoy, he's also gone for 4-1. Before we wrap things up, lads, and we're just getting to the end of the piece, I want to come to you individually just very quickly to ask you for your favourite cup final wins for Celtic. There's been a number of them in recent times, so it might be something that Brendan Rodgers has achieved. Maybe it's a Lenny thing, a Martin O'Neill thing, or even further back. So I'll come to you first, James. What's been the favourite cup final, Scottish cup final in recent times for you?
In recent times, I think there's a Celtic fan out there that wouldn't go for Tom Rogic against Aberdeen. Such drama. Just that game had absolutely everything. I was reading a wee report on that yesterday. And remember, that was the one where Tierney get elbowed, am I right?
Yeah.
Right. You know who replaced him?
Armstrong? No.
Rogic.
Tom Rogic. How'd that work out?
Worked out very well. So I'd say it'd have to be that. Ayer obviously is a big one for the quadruple treble. Things like that. But no, Tom Rogic all the way.
Yeah. Paddy, where are you at on that one?
I've just seen Thomas Dawson comment 95 years final in the Rogic final. Exact same Thomas. the 95 final was probably like obviously some of the earlier games that I would start to remember, and none other than a game against my hometown as well. Well, my ex-hometown. I got out of there quick, guys. But Big Pierre was one of my first heroes as well, and I still remember the goal. Also remember the Airdrie bus driving by our house on the way home as well. And my dad was, giving him a nice wave, if you can put it that way, as they went past. And then for me, that Rogic final was just a culmination of emotions, really, when you think about the season that we had, an invincible treble. Just incredible. We were kind of all preparing ourselves for extra time, and then just an incredible goal. The scenes in the stands, and then a brilliant behind shot of Craig Gordon as well. Just the emotion was outpouring for everyone. So yeah, more of that, please, Celtic. That would be great.
Yes, please, Celtic. Some good comments coming in. We've got Patrick McLaughlin sharing the fact that Centenary Year 88 was his favourite, and then the Rodgers one that James mentioned, his next favourite. Jim Hunter, he's shown his age, but Jim's going for the 7-1 game. League Cup final, I think, Jim, but I'll give you in a technicality. Obviously, a huge day for Celtic, and a few others coming in. Asim, what about yourself? What's been your favourite in recent times?
It's obviously hard to look past the Rodgers one. Just everything about it was iconic, and I think it will go down in history. It's one of those in 50 years' time, people will still be playing that goal and the scenes, the rain pouring down. It was brilliant. It was honestly a special day just to be there. The Airdrie one you mentioned, I was quite young at the time, but I just remember this is one of the first memories I have of a Celtic goal. Just that kind of iconic header and the commentary. But too young to really appreciate it. I'll probably another one just sticking from kind of when growing up was Larsson's kind of last competitive game for us. Was it 3-0 against Dunfermline or 3-1? But I remember him scoring on his final game, and it was quite an emotional one. There was some good ones under Martin O'Neill, obviously Hibs in that treble season as well. But I think the Rogic one stands out for most, and if we can get anything close to that on Saturday, it'll be a truly memorable day. I think regardless, it's one of those. I'm nervous about it because obviously it's the last game of the season in terms of it is like after that's us done. We all look forward to the Euros and things, so you don't want to end it on a downer. So I'm confident but also nervous. You just hope that we can pull off one last big performance, and I think we will, just to top it off. And don't know if there'll be a party back at Celtic Park or whatever, but let's just hope we can get the job done.
Yeah, it's a long old summer after the Scottish Cup final, so here's hoping that we're all in a good place after Saturday. Paddy, James Asim's playing the Joe Clark card, doing the whole, I was so young at the time, and I think
I'm the same age as Paddy though.
You've got a situation with Joe Clark, who was minus 4 years of age for the 1995 Scottish Cup final. So that's enough of that. There is a nice comment that's coming in from Long Silver, who says that Asim is great on Axum. Never heard of Axum. Apparently it's decent, but I wouldn't know for sure. But nice comment. And the other cup final that none of us have mentioned, but Bridal has, Hibs v Rangers is right up there for him. It's a very special Scottish Cup. Lads, we've run a wee bit over, but I think that's okay for such a big occasion, such a huge game for Celtic and all involved on Saturday. But I'll just come round you very quickly for your final thoughts before we wrap up. Paddy, I'll come to you first.
Well, first of all, again, I'm going back to the comments. I'm sorry to hear about your dog, Haggis. It's no the greatest losing a pet on a cup final day. You can go through the comments if you want that one, Tino. Yeah, just for me, just be ready. Be ready on Saturday. I think that we've done enough this season to prove why we should have won the league. And I just think that it would be a nice sweet taste for us if we go and get the double this year. It puts a big marker down for next season in terms of our planning and what we want to do. We want to continue the success, 3 league titles in a row, and for me, like, I want us dominating in every tournament that we play in. I really do. As I've said before, I've heard many Celtic fans say the league and that's it this season. I get that, I understand it, what it means, the value of it now with the Champions League. But we are big enough and bold enough to be going and pushing for every tournament we play in.
100%. Asim, you had kind of wrapped things up, but just any final comments from yourself?
No, just to echo what Paddy says, you just want to end it on such a high now. Show the dominance that we all know has been there. We know we're the better team. We've got the better manager. You just want to give them absolutely nothing. You know, they've been so quiet these last few weeks, and it's been brilliant. And you just want to really, really, rub salt into the wounds by getting this done, and just make it a kind of magical summer then, and a lot to look forward to. So yeah, let's do our talking on the pitch, and hopefully we'll all be celebrating after the game.
Definitely. James, final word goes to you ahead of Saturday's big game.
Yeah, I mean, this team's worked so hard this year to get to where we've got to, and it would be appalling if they didn't get the reward, because they've been brilliant. There's been so many tough moments throughout this season. They've got the league in the bag. That's the big one, of course. But Hampden Scottish Cup final, that's our trophy. So just looking forward to them going out, playing with that freedom, playing good football, giving us a few goals, sending Joe Hart off another medal in his pocket.
Yeah, and we never really get around to Joe Hart, but we've covered a lot of Joe Hart stuff recently, and hopefully he's got one last big special day left in him on Saturday. Huge thanks as always to everyone that's joined us in the comments. I always say this, but it's true. It makes a big difference to what we can do on the show. We really appreciate all the support and everything that you guys do for the show. A couple of updates. We're going to have a special episode out tomorrow. I spoke to Henry Winter today. A lot of you guys will know Henry Winter, really talented sports writer. 10 years as chief sports writer for the Times down south. And he was up at the recent Celtic Rangers game a couple of weeks back. And we had a good conversation this morning about his experiences in Glasgow and the many conversations he's had over the years with Joe Hart and Brendan Rodgers as part of what he does as a writer. So really interesting episode. That'll go live around about lunchtime tomorrow. Game time on Saturday. Hopefully Asim grabs a ticket. The rest of us will be there. And we'll be doing the post-match on Sunday around about lunchtime. But we'll give you an update on the socials. So in the meantime, folks, thanks as always for joining us. Hopefully another special weekend in store for Celtic. We'll see you all again very soon.